Hello everyone and welcome back to another album review, and in this video I'm going to review BiS Dive Into Rocks by BiS. BiS, also known as Brand New Idol Society, is a Japanese idol group, or let's just say it that it's basically one of those alternative idol groups, like kind of the same case with NUM-AMI-DABUTZ, which I've talked in the past. BiS is more of the same thing. It's not like your standard idol group, they've gone into other directions and sounds that are not just that usual in what you would expect from your average idol group. Now, as far as you have directions of like J-pop and J-rock, it's another one of those groups whose discography has gone into multiple different genres, and basically just getting to their works can be a convoluted mess at times. Past members of BiS have also done collaborative projects with Hitsukaidan, which is basically the way I was introduced to this idol group. And yeah, it makes for some really weird albums, as you have combinations of like J-pop and idol music with noise, like what Hitsukaidan are known for. Even if it didn't end up making for some consistently great albums, it's still not something that you see every day. Now, when it comes to their solo works, I haven't really gotten that much into their albums, but from everything I've heard, it's not that easy to follow, as they've experimented with many different sounds over the years. However, it seems that when it comes to this new wave of BiS with this new lineup, it seems that the past 3 albums have gone into similar directions so far. It's more of like a pop punk sound with like J-rock elements, you can say like garage punk at times. But listening to this brand new album over here, as it stands for by itself, it's not really that much of a convoluted album and not really that hard to follow. For the most part, you have a pretty standard pop punk album that, in my opinion, it's actually done really well. Even if I'm usually not that much interested of albums that go into sounds like this, I ended up really enjoying this one, actually much more than expected, and I think that there are various aspects to it that make it stand out and making it something a bit more than just your average pop punk album. For example, one of the aspects I ended up finding really interesting about this album is its overall production, as we're talking about a much more raw sound than the usual. And I think that it actually works in its favor when it comes to this more raw and distorted and heavy sound. I think that it works pretty well with some of the tracks over here, even if it might take away a bit from the fact that some of the songs are like really fun and catchy. I feel it ends up giving an appeal to it that makes it much more engaging and intriguing to sit through. Also, some of the deliveries end up being really aggressive at times. For the most part, you have your average female pop vocals, but other than that, it might go over the top at times and just contain some screeches and screams as background vocals. Case in point is the very first track, which in my opinion it's actually incredible in its genre. I think it's a really well done song. It is really fun and catchy, and it has some beautiful melodies to it. It's just really memorable and addictive. Just taking this track rhythmically and melodically, it could easily fit as one of those garage rock revival songs that you would see in a racing game. It has that nostalgic feel to it, which is awesome, but then you have the production and those vocals towards the end of the song where you're like, it's not really that much fitting. However, for me, this ends up adding to the experience and making it a much more intriguing song. The next track, though Magic in comparison, seems to be slightly more safe as a song, but it's basically one of the few safe moments over here, as after this point it picks up once again with a third track, which in my opinion ended up growing on me even more. It is a quite memorable and very catchy and fun song on what it does. And then we have the track Positive Mental Attitude, where it's the one moment in this album where they basically go ska punk, which is nothing new. BiS have experimented with this sound in the past and they just know how to make a good ska punk song. This one is not an exception. Positive Mental Attitude is a really good moment. NUM-AMI-DABUTZ is undoubtedly the weirdest and the most chaotic moment in this album. It's basically the one track where you're like, yeah, this feels weird and like out of the ordinary, because we're talking about an extremely distorted song. Like, this one has the most raw production out of every single one of them. At times the beats and the guitars just sound extremely noisy, and it's just a mess when it comes to the genres as well, as the vocals in the verses go into those rap directions attached with some weird electronic synths. And yeah, it's just a song that I can't really describe it as much. It's worth checking out though. Even if it's not one of my favorites in the track listing, I cannot deny that this is certainly the most unique one. Apart from that, another one of the highlights I would say is the track Good Girl, definitely one of the catchiest and most memorable moments over here, and in general it's just a really fun song, really catchy, kinda cute at times, but you know, you still have those really aggressive moments to it that make the experience much better. I would say that the very next track actually contains some of the most beautiful elements that I've found in any of the tracks out of the album. I wouldn't say that the pacing is the greatest, as I would prefer a bit of a different finisher, addressing and concluding all of the elements that I really liked about this song. But apart from that, yeah, this track definitely contains some of the best riffs out of this whole album. If there is one track that I ended up liking the least out of the track listing, was Eric W. A track that was way longer in my opinion than what it needed. It's basically the longest moment, going for almost 5 minutes, and it's not really all that captivating. I think that for the most part it sounds average, it's a bit forgettable, it's kinda boring, and it was the one moment that definitely struck to me as the weakest moment in the album, because even if there are moments over here that I don't really care for as much, I still end up enjoying a lot and feeling that they work pretty nicely in the track listing. I think that Eric W in particular should have been done a bit differently. Finally, the album ends with the track Imagine, which is a cute finisher that it's kinda appropriate with what the rest of the album did. The really intense blast beats towards the end is certainly an interesting touch, and making the track sort of stand out for itself and making for a certainly unique and interesting moment compared to almost anything else. So with that being said, this album has its moments when it comes to just being a bit more wacky at times and not just being another sort of average pop punk album, but for the most part you basically have this formula and it's actually done and executed pretty well. So for me this album was a pleasant surprise. I definitely need to go back in their catalog and listen to some other of the pop punk albums and see in which directions they would go as well, but for what this stands for by itself, it's actually one of the most interesting I've heard in the genre for a very long time. I ended up enjoying it more than expected, and yeah, it's just a really cool album that I do highly recommend. I'm gonna give BiS Dive Into Rocks a 7+ out of 10. What's your opinion on this album? Like it, dislike it, why? And what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. If you like a future video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.